Welcome to Here's What We Know, the podcast of unexpected conversations. Before we get started, again, a shout out to my sponsors. Without them, this just doesn't happen. And this episode, you're going to want to share and hit the like button because I'm excited. As I told her when she came on, I said, I'm going to do my best not to fangirl out on this episode because I will tell you right now, you want to know where the rabbit hole lives? The rabbit hole lives in Cristina Gomez's backyard. And I willingly jump down it all the time with her and lose so much time that I could be doing something else, but I'm not sorry. The host of, you have three TV shows. She has the Strange Paradigm website. Her name is Cristina Gomez. She's everything UFO, paranormal, just a little strange science news. She's my spirit animal. How are you?
What an intro. Oh my goodness. Like if I wasn't wearing foundation, I would be turning as red as a stop sign. Okay. Like I am blushing so hard, but thank you so much, Gary. And I'm really excited to be here and talk about UFOs. That's the topic on everyone's mind.
I am ready to go all the way down this. So everything that I do want to let everybody know a little bit, and I want to know a little bit about how you got into this, because obviously it's a passion, but where did the road lead?
Yeah. So Twilight Zone, best TV show of all time. That's how it started. And I grew up with parents that really fostered curiosity and asking questions. So that really helped because if you had kids or work with kids, right, what we realize, especially in public schools, is that don't ask questions, sit down, shut up, and just follow along. And parents can be like that sometimes too. So when you grow up in a certain environment where questions are great, it helps you in your adulthood because adults are also scared of asking questions because they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want to be shut down. I get that. It's that protective mechanism. But when it comes to the topic of the strange and the mysterious, if you don't ask questions, this topic isn't for you.
You know, what was your teenage years like? I mean, as far as like that, because this was a passion. So did some of your friends go, yeah, whatever, Cristina, or did you just find your tribe?
I was definitely that odd kid. My best friend was a 60-year-old librarian at my high school. We used to hang out, have lunch. I would ditch class just to hang out with her. So, like, I think that's a pretty good summary of my teen years.
I respect that. So you did find your tribe, and it was a 60-year-old librarian.
She was the bomb.com. I got to be honest with you. She was amazing.
I would get such a kick. Like I said, if you live closer, my wife and I'd be having you over for coffee all the time, and my wife would be like, "We're going to talk about this again." Really? Yes, we are. That's what we're going to do. I want to get your take because in my day there were UFOs, and we've decided to cast aside that jargon, and now we have UAPs, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. Now, here's my take. My thing about UFOs, I'm the biggest Star Trek, Star Wars. I grew up on that stuff. I'm a science fiction geek. I still read science fiction books and stuff like that. Yeah. But the numbers are what confuse me because the vastness of space is beyond what the human mind can comprehend. I mean, just the vastness of our solar system really is beyond our scale. And when we say light speed, 186,000 miles a second. So when we say something's 8 light years away, that's 8 years of going 186,000 miles a second. That's where I have my doubts. I don't know how, they obviously have learned physics differently than us, but I want to be that. How do you get past that? How do you tell yourself, because you're obviously a brilliant young woman, and you've sat back and you've looked at this and you do so much research. I want to get into your research also. All right. How do you reconcile those things?
Well, the first thing, when we're looking at distance, it's very human. It's okay. We can only travel with fuel, with rockets, and that's very mundane. It's very simple. When we're dealing and thinking about extraterrestrials. And at this point, interdimensionals is now a part of this topic. When we consider these entities, first we have to consider them being incredibly smart, much smarter than us, and having technology to where they don't have to travel slower than the speed of light, even at the speed of light. That's like caveman technology. And I think even for us, when we attempt to rationalize it, who would want to travel for 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, 1,000 years? It's not worth it. But what we've come to realize when we're dealing with science and quantum mechanics is that it's very possible that we're able to harness at some point exotic matter in order to open up portals and wormholes. It's the same thing with black holes as well, which we just got a photo of our very first one just a few years ago. They were first discovered and more proven in the late 90s. The first exoplanet was found in 1992 is a little fun fact, but
I remember it.
When we're looking at black holes, it was theorized by Albert Einstein in the early 1900s. And he said, what if a black hole is actually a white hole? You're able to travel through it. And then on the other end, you're in a different location. It becomes a portal, or even the Einstein-Rosen bridge. So when we consider these ideas, and with our very mundane technology, where we're just barely touching the surface when it comes to exploring space, if we consider these other entities that have been doing this for a decade, 100 years, 1,000 years, they will have that understanding much better than ourselves. And when we consider that, it makes it plausible for entities to be coming here to Earth, to be going to other planets, and at the very least, just exploring and documenting it.
I love the fact that we have cameras now, right? And it's the old thing when I was growing up, it was always some guy named Clyde out in the swamp in Louisiana who got abducted and had things inserted. You would hope that if there's alien technology, maybe they could just use an X-ray to find everything they needed, I mean, maybe. But there was no video proof, and everything that we did have was so blurry and static. And now with the release of the Pentagon films, that truly changed the game, in my opinion. That's the one thing that totally changed the game, because now these are government films. These are trained pilots, and these are objects that are doing things that simply cannot be done by, much less beings, cannot be done by any material we have on Earth right now. We could not build a ship that would withstand the G-forces that are applicated on these things. That's where it came out. How about you? Where did you see the big ship? Because it could be different. And let me tell you something right now. Don't ever be afraid to tell me I'm wrong. I am fine with being told I'm wrong, because sometimes that's the only way I can learn. So when I say stuff, don't think that I'm thinking I'm right. I'm just throwing it out there. And if you go, gee, Gary, aren't you a special kid? So feel free,
oh
okay?
my gosh, Gary, I love that. We are on the same wavelength, because I'm just like you on that. Like, if I'm wrong, correct me. That's how it should be. But when you're on this pedestal of knowing everything, no, that's not how it works. But to answer your question, when we're looking at those videos that you had mentioned, like the Tic Tac, the Gimbal, and the Go Fast, that were authenticated by the Pentagon in 2020, but those were filmed in the early 2000s. We got 2004, and then also in 2017. These images and videos really shook up the media, shook up the world, because the government, at least in the United States, was saying, yeah, these are real, and we don't know what they are. We're not saying it's alien. We're not saying it's ours, but it's in the category of unknown. And so now, whenever the news covers UFOs, they're always playing one of those 3 videos. And for people in the field, it gets a little old. You're like, come on, there's other cool stuff out there. But that's what got the topic going. And when we're looking at the objects, and also hearing the witness testimonies, specifically from David Fravor and Alex Dietrich, that saw the Tic Tac when they were a part of the Nimitz back in 2004, they said that this object was just hovering over the water. Our technology at this point in time that it's at least been public cannot do that. Now, there have been other cases of people that have witnessed UFOs going in and out of the water, which are classified as USOs, referring to unidentified submergible objects or submerged objects. And what's really interesting from witness testimony is that when they enter the water, these objects, they don't create a splash. They don't create any movement in the water. And if you drop anything, a rock, a pen, whatever object you have, it will always make that beautiful splash. The question is, how are they able to do it and why? So there have been some theories that they're able to create almost this like vacuum type force field in order to enter and exit water without disturbing it. Is that crazy talk? Is that a possibility? When we're looking at these topics, we have to consider everything, put everything on the table, because what was crazy 10, 20 years ago is now plausible today. And a good example of that is quantum mechanics. Like 100 years ago, that was insane talk. And then my favorite quote of what Nikola Tesla said, he was like, if you understand quantum mechanics, you do not understand quantum mechanics. And I'm like, I feel that one. I feel that.
Quantum, if you take the time to study, and I've become a fan of astrophysics, right? Not because I'm smart. Trust me, I'm not. But what I really enjoy is how well we can explain it now. Right? That we can give you models, computer models that go, this is what this means. Until you get to the quantum realm. And I have a 12 and a 14-year-old. And, cause it's the face of optimism. And, I remember talking to them one day about science and we were talking about large and then you go down to small. And I said, the crazy thing is once you get into the quantum level, all of the laws that apply that we can see no longer exist. And let me tell you why. As far as I can tell, we don't know why. We can't figure it out. We have no explanation. Did you see that latest research? And of course you did, because we're going to talk about your research where I think it was a team in Australia saying there may not be dark matter and dark energy. There may be just a fundamental lack of understanding of gravity. Okay. We've been playing with gravity since Newton's time. And they're basically coming out going, nah, everything we think, no. And that's, to me, it's just jaw dropping. Because as you were saying, my brother-in-law worked in the defense industry, God rest his soul. And he told me one time, he goes, of course, I can't talk about anything, but I can tell you anything you know about is probably 20 to 30 years old. And it's probably 2 to 5 generations in the past. And that's what you know about. Same thing when I say the films that you mentioned, 2000. Don't you think there's got to be other government films that they so aren't going to release until years happen, years from now? Because it just seems to be the pattern.
Looking at that, I've heard that as well. There have been a few researchers that have come forward and government officials that have come forward and mentioned the same thing, that the topics that we're mentioning today that we think is so fresh, it's so new, we're decades behind from what these other scientists that are being funded by who knows who are way ahead of us. And it's disappointing to hear that. But the excuse would be, well, it's a national security threat. And that's where it gets really difficult to handle it, to get more information, because national security is national security, and you got to protect, and those are in quotation marks, you got to protect everyone. And when we're looking at this UFO topic, you have two camps, those that are okay with this almost threat narrative of the UFO phenomenon is a national security threat. And then you have others that say, nope, all ET, all interdimensionals, they're our space brothers. They're here to save us and protect us. My question is, what about alien abductions? 99% of those are against their will and they sound terrible. The national security threat issue, here's my take on it, is that if the government did not see an issue with UFOs, there would be no research and no funding on it. Because if it's all unicorns and rainbows and butterflies, why look into it? Why spend manpower, equipment, and money on it? when it becomes a threat, they're like, okay, now we got to take this seriously. Now we got to really put in the manpower for this. Not everyone has to agree with me, and that is totally okay. But I can understand that viewpoint because it adds this level of seriousness and almost a level of credibility as well as that, like, you need to take this at another level. You need to take this seriously because there is something to it. We just don't fully know what it is. We have theories, we have ideas, we have witnesses, but we don't have all of the answers.
You can see both sides of it. Was it Stephen Hawking's take toward the end of his life? Hey, we shouldn't be letting them know we're here, right? And maybe I'm mistaken on that, but I tend to remember that I thought he was thinking, listen, if they're coming, they'd be coming for a reason. And I'd also sit back and say, on the other side, if those crafts can do what we've seen them to do, we've got no defense. If they wanted to take over, we're toast, right? But why would you come all of this way when there would be a lot of more easier planets to take over to get pretty much anything you needed, that may not be inhabited or populated, to find places. There's water planets. Heck, in our own solar system, we have, the frozen water planets and stuff. So why would you come here to take, unless Twilight Zone, we are to serve man? Remember? It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. So you could see both sides of that. Where do you fall on it? What is the Cristina Gomez take? Because before I get started on it, how much research do you do each week? I just want to know because I love how informed you are.
If I think about it, my brain will crack open, but a lot. So I have 2 jobs, but I also do 3 shows a week on my channel just because I love this topic so much. And when I first started, I felt so out of the loop. I didn't know much. And I thought I really got to steamroll in order to get a grasp of the topic. So, I mean, when I'm not working, I'm researching. When I'm not researching, I'm working. And so sleep and social time, they don't exist.
People. It's remarkable to me. And you got 2 jobs outside of this is what you're saying. Because I can tell you that hosting my podcast, I spend so many hours doing research on just the episodes that I have coming up. And the only reason I stay up on science is because it interests me. And I do a break on my streaming show every Friday. We do science, and I try to find these little weird, interesting stories, just like you do, which is why I love the weekly Strange News, because that's what you do. And if you've been listening to me for a while and you love that, you need to find Christina's show on Friday because she does an expanded version of what I do. And yeah, it's really well. I enjoy it so much. But I just marvel. I sit back and look at, and I watch your shows and I'm like, I cannot imagine, because I'm doing this, how much time this young woman puts into this. It's stunning. And it shows because you're very well informed, right? And I have, I've loved your some of my favorites. I thought your Ross Coulthart interview, you knocked out of the park. I love the fact that you had your questions and he could tell that you knew what was going on. Some of his theories are crazy that it's not really a cover up. It's kind of human error, that's where did that conversation lead you in your path to trying to understand this all?
That conversation, it led me to think that the government is less incompetent than I had originally imagined. When I had interviewed him, I was just kind of getting into the topic, looking into the government aspect to it. Because when you're interested in UFOs as a kid, you're interested in like the famous cases, right? Like the idea of just life being out there, Star Wars, Star Trek. But when you get serious into the topic for real, doing the research, you see all these nuances. It takes you across all of these different train tracks. And being able to speak to Ross, knowing what he knows, speaking to the people that he has, people on the inside, people on the outside, I thought to myself, it doesn't seem like the United States government really has it all together. But also, the government is very compartmentalized as well. The right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. And I think with honestly, the last several reports that we've gotten from the UAPTF, from the AOI, MSG, and from Arrow, it displays that.
I was shocked by the fact of the UAP sightings at every single nuclear site
Yes.
there is, as far as we know, in the world. Okay, y'all. We'll just let that sit there for a
Just
second.
let it simmer. Yeah, because we've seen it in the United States. We've seen it in India. We've seen it at the time, it was Soviet Ukraine. We've seen it well, those are the ones that are known. Imagine the ones that are unknown. But a lot of them have taken place in the United States. Oh, and England as well. Duh, Rendlesham. Come on, get it together, Christina. But to throw out some bases.
You know how much stuff's in your brain, girl. Give yourself a break.
So just to name some bases, we have the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. We have the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. There is and the city always escapes me in Soviet Ukraine, but it took place in the late 1980s, I believe, and that one was crazy. Then you have Rendlesham, then you have Roswell, which years later we found out that the Roswell base was actually, it had nuclear weapons there. And so the question is, what is going on? Why do UFOs have an interest in this? Ever since the first atomic bomb test was conducted at the White Sands, like the Trinity test, that's when UFOs were being seen more consistently from the research that I've collected. And the big question that many people are asking is why? Do these entities care about humans? Do they care about the resources on planet Earth? Do they not want to see us explode everything here that is so amazing and so beautiful? Or are they just taking notes like they're in some kind of biology exam and
Crime
figuring
directive.
it out? Exactly. We don't have the answers, but everyone has their own theory on it. But so far, we haven't conducted an interview with them. So we don't know.
It's crazy. And then when you sit back and think about how rare life is, I mean, we've sat back and theorized about life on planet, and we're talking cellular. But as far as I know, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, we've not found any on anything so far. Now we've theorized it, but we've not found any. So that's just life. The leap to intelligent life. I know you read about this where they did the supercomputer and asked it to say what are the amounts of planets that could host intelligent life in the Milky Way galaxy. And they spit out the number 1. That was what the computer came up with, because the amount of infinitesimal things that had to happen for you and I to be sitting here talking about this right now is mind blowing when you really start thinking about it. So when you sit back and say, are they here to watch? If they truly know how rare life is, maybe they are watching and trying to pull for us and maybe even helping, and we don't even know about it yet. You know, the Fuji, is it the Fujiyama or is it Fujikawa? The nuclear thing that was the nuclear plant in Japan that got hit by the tsunami. Fukushima. Remember, supposedly there was a film there showing something was there. Could it have been immensely worse? Will we find out years from now? Could it have been catastrophically worse than what it was? Don't know.
That right there is food for thought, because we don't know. And what if we're dealing with different entities that have different agendas as well? Those that are rooting for humanity and those that don't really care. You have that
flipping
as well.
Klingons. I said flipping Klingons. Damn Romulans.
Jeez. Get it together, guys.
Daleks.
Well, bringing that up, I'll make this really short. The Klingons, they are classified as being xenophobic. They only care about their race. Could we say that humanity might be the same when we begin to explore the stars, explore the universe, to where we have that same kind of almost fear against these other entities?
Look at us now. Take a stare around the planet. I mean, it is us versus them all over
it
this
is.
planet. And the science fiction, the Gene Roddenberrys of the world always hope that once we get an outside threat, we would all bond together. Maybe, but our history has shown that even time we bonded together, we find a way to pull apart, right? Because tribalism exists, and it's existed since the beginning of mankind. We've never not known tribalism in the history. When you sit back and look at the history of any civilization, but you would hope so. I also love the theory. Can you tell I don't get a chance to geek out like this a lot, right? I try to talk to, hey, honey, tell my wife, hey, honey. And she's like, yeah, babe. But what was I thinking? The theory that, in Star Trek and everything else, everything is so, it's just guys with different makeup than us, right? Because actors and filming and stuff like that. But did you see that theory that we may be the way life is? That at some point, life would always turn into a visual, audio, odoriferous situation and being able to have moving parts. That's what it would do if it lives on a surface. If it's underneath the surface, then it's going to be what we see underneath the surface, that this is the way life works. I find that fascinating. That we may not have Jabba the Hutt out there after all. It's a take on that. What is your research? Have you come across any of that stuff where somebody has theories on what aliens might be like?
Yeah. I think a good example of this is just television and media altogether. There's also some really great Netflix documentaries. The name is escaping me, but it blew up. And I want to say it was like the year 2020, 2021, where everything was CGI, but what life would be like. And I think it was called Alien or Alien Planets, Alien Worlds. Someone will know from your audience because they know this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, it's bothering me. But when we are considering our solar system, our universe, and bringing in astrobiology into this, where we have different elements, we understand how they can affect the planet and how they can affect life, even when we're close to certain stars, like brown dwarf stars. You can't be close to a supernova because it's game over, buddy. But stars like our sun as well, the gravity does affect the life. So when we're looking at alien grays, for instance, it's a great example. They have very gray skin. They have ginormous eyes, completely black, and they're usually short. You have the idea of them being AI and robotic, but let's put that to a side just for a moment. Let's say they were completely biological, just flesh and blood, right? They would have to be close to a brown dwarf star in order to have those kinds of features. We know this information based off of science, space exploration, and astrobiology. That's how they would look. So when we're considering those things, it's not merely just all a crazy hypothesis or wearing a tinfoil hat and being a conspiracy theorist, but there is science backing up certain features that these entities might have. Now, it's difficult when we're dealing with the more insectoid type entities like the praying mantis, right? That's kind of hard to talk about. But when it comes to size and your basic features, we can promote that or connect it to the star that they're next to.
And the size of the planet. I mean, that's what we see with the super Earths. You and I couldn't live on a super Earth. The gravity would just crush us almost, or it would severely impair our ability to move around. Right? I mean, it's some of these super Earths that are 1.5 times. What's the largest? Is it like 2-3 times the size, or 1.5 times, 2 times? Again, it's big, right? And isn't that the fun thing that we're finding out about science is everything that we think we know now comes with a caveat. When I was growing up, it was, this is the way it is. This is what happens. This is what we know. This is it. And it's always will be. And then we started going, okay, well, that's wrong. And that's wrong. And now with the induction of Hubble and with the James Webb Space Telescope, I mean, we don't even know how old the damn universe is.
They think it's twice as old because of the James Webb Space Telescope, which is is crazy.
Think about it for the next generation of the telescope. When we find out that it's twice as old as what the James Webb, because it was the introduction of new technology that changed everything. And now we're finding planets and stars that are doing things that we didn't think. The neutron star that we had on our science news as we recorded this today, the neutron star that that's giving out these weird signals and emitting things that we didn't think neutron stars could do. And a neutron star is a white dwarf that's collapsed beyond. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
It turns into a metron. So the neutron star, I can't remember all the stuff. I'm like you, but I've got a lot of extra crap in my head because I'm just a lot older than you. But those things, and we didn't even think it was possible. Science is going, this is crazy. This is bizarre. And it's just with the new level of technology.
And the sad thing is, this is changing so quickly. And yet in our school systems, even in university, they're teaching you the old stuff, the boring stuff. And I can provide you an example, a personal example. I just graduated back in December, and I ended up taking a class in, it wasn't in biology, but it was like about ecosystems. The class title is leaving me. But about 6 months or so before taking that class, the James Webb Space Telescope had released information that the universe is twice as old as we thought it was. So we thought it was like in the 14 billion years old. Well, now they're saying it's about 28 billion years old. I put that in my exam for my class, and I got it wrong, and I wasn't able to negotiate it with my professor. And I'm like, you're wrong. I think I'm decently right because I'm following along this topic. And she's like, nah, sorry, we're following it by the book. And the thing is that when you are following things by the book that is old information, it's not right anymore. And another example to this is science. Like you had said, Gary, science is always finding new information, and they find out that their foundation that they're standing on is a bit wobbly, it's cracked, and it's fractured in so many ways. And so when we're looking at that, we have to quickly adapt, but people are not able to do so because they've set their whole life, their whole viewpoint on that foundation that is incorrect. And to bring in my favorite quote by Aristotle is, to know all is to know nothing. When you have a glass that's full of water, you can't add any more water to that. It's like a brain. You can't add any more information when you think you're the smartest person in the universe.
I am so with you on that. And I could take it back in my day when I went to college because we didn't have any other option than books. That's all we had. I have no idea why they even use textbooks anymore.
Me neither.
I don't.
And they're hundreds of dollars.
It's the money. And you know what the truth of it is? They were hundreds of dollars when I went to school. And I'm not even sure that your parents were born when I went to school. All right. I'm just telling you the truth. So it was a while ago. And so it was one of those kind of situations where, and then you would try to sell them back. You'd buy a textbook for $95. And this was a long time ago. And then you go to sell it back to them and they'd offer you $6 for it.
It hasn't changed.
And you're like, but it's, yeah. And that's the thing. So now when my sons go to middle school, you know what they give them on the first day of middle school? A iPad. That's what they give them. And everything is contained on the iPad. You do all your work and you do everything. Your stuff comes in that. You have anything you study for, it's right there. Why aren't they doing that in high schools and colleges? And therefore, the information could be updated, especially when it comes to the field of science and astrophysics. It's updated. Hey, y'all, feel free to search science news for yourself. There will be sheets of it that comes up every day. And I can tell her just from the little part that I do on science. So I know you have to do. Isn't the hardest part of your job trying to filter what to use and what to save for later? Right? And so that's how much science news is out there all the time. And I do not get why, man, Are you going to throw, where did you go to school at? And if you don't want to tell me, that's okay. You don't want to say, I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. But it drives me crazy. So, all right, I'm going to take a quick break to pay for this. I'll be right back. And I'm trying not to fan out, but I'm failing miserably with Cristina Gomez from Strange Paradigms.
If you're looking for Western wear, you need to find Winchester Western Wear at 1185 South Bascom Avenue in San Jose. You're not going to find the perfect outfit at the mall or the outlets. Come to the place with over 40 years of experience and all the top name brands like Ariat, Justin, Stetson, Tony Lama, and more. When you go to the great country shows at Shoreline, SAP, Club Rodeo, or Clola Shans, you'll be looking your best, from boots to hats to everything in between, with a knowledgeable staff that'll make the entire experience a fun one. Find them online at winchesterww.com. That's winchesterww.com. Or put this in your maps, 1185 South Bascom Avenue in San Jose. Winchester Western Wear. They'll help you find a look you love. Let's talk about the inevitable. End of life. Once I leave this earth, I can't do anything for my loved ones, but I've just learned by pre-planning a funeral or cemetery in advance takes the guesswork out when death occurs suddenly and your mind is clouded with grief. Dignity Memorial can help. My friend Tina Skurla pre-plans funeral and cemetery arrangements so loved ones don't have to. They're North America's largest provider of funeral, cremation, and cemetery services. They're dedicated to getting every detail right, and they do that by listening to you. I know it's a hard subject, but I also know we all see the sense and value of what Dignity Memorial does. Use the promo code Gary to get 25% off at Willow Glen Funeral Home. Reach out to my friend Tina Skurla today. She's committed to helping families not go through the tragedy of loss alone. Click on the link, use the promo code Gary, or email her at dmppa.tinaskurla.com, or call 408-398-7050.
So another fun guest with me for you was, I love Luis, what was his name? Luis Elizondo.
Elizondo, yes.
Yeah. And because he still works in the defense industry. And I thought it was kind of fun that he would go, there's some things I just still can't answer for you. There's still some things I cannot say that are classified. And as someone who interviews and I felt for you, but I also thought you handled it well. You're like, I get it. I understand. What about his interview did you learn that is stuck with you?
This is a really great question, actually, because there's a few things. One, he's mentioned on the show, because I've had him on several times, and I've spoken to him privately as well. And he always tells me, Cristina, I'm not going to infringe on my NDAs because I do not look good in orange. And I'm just like, yes, jokes. I respect that. But on a side note, the information that he's brought forward is also the topic of interdimensionals, that they're not just coming from a different planet, but they could also be coming from a different dimension. He hasn't mentioned that like verbatim, but he's alluded to that, which kind of laid the foundation for David Grush to come forward during his UAP witness hearing in July of 2023, or even his interview that he gave with Ross Coulthard for News Nation back in June of last year. Was it May? It was filmed in May, but I think it was released in June. Someone will correct me on that. But what I'm getting at here is the interdimensional conversation is rather new. It started off with Jacques Vallée, one of the most prevalent UFO researchers in the world, but it didn't really take off significantly. It wasn't until the last few years, honestly. When I'm saying few, I'm saying like the last 3 or 4 years, where people are saying, I can see that. I can see them being interdimensional, especially when we're even dealing with the ideas of dimensions, the ideas of string theory. Scientists are saying that there's up to 11 dimensions that we kind of know of that are theoretical. But that also brings in the topic of the paranormal, of ghosts. Are they in their own kind of dimension? They're here, but they're not fully here. Not everyone can see them. Can we connect the UFO phenomenon with the paranormal, Gary, in your opinion?
I can see where you go with it, and the string theory evidence that's always been is the different levels, and they vibrate and they glance and touch. It's like if you had sheets of paper and they're floating around, every now and then they touch. They don't bond, but they touch. And at that moment, that singular moment, they are one entity. And if an alien race has figured out a way to slide in and then slide out of dimensions,
Brilliant.
that would be instantaneous, right? In our mind, it would be instantaneous. It would be, where'd they go? Well, they just simply step back in the other room, and it would be beyond what we could fathom. I could see that the thing with the paranormal, because then it brings in, and I'm not afraid of going there, because I will freely admit I'm a man of faith, but it brings in that when you, like, what happens when you die? Because that's the paranormal part. Is it going to a next plane of existence? And if it's somebody who knows you, somebody who died and loves you, would they try to contact you? Would they know if they could get a hold of you and go, hey, here's the next step, So I find it more plausible for the UFO than the ghost theory, and I use that, just the ghost theory, because it sounds cool. And I realize that people could disagree with me vehemently. And here's what you need to know. I'm good with that. I'm so good with you disagreeing with me. I'm totally cool with that. Share with me your thoughts, because again, that's what I love to. But I just see it more on a scientific gaze, because if they are in the other dimension and it's another race of beings, then I don't know why anybody that we would recognize would be there. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Okay. I can add to this. I can add, because this is a really good point that you just made, Gary. A good example is Whitley Strieber. He's one of the more famous abductees, contactees, and he had mentioned...
He started it really all along. I mean, Whitley Strieber, he was the one that really started it. I remember reading that book when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. He was the one that set the foundation for other people to come forward and share their stories. But not that early on. I would say after he's written a few books, decades after his first encounter, he began to see the correlation between the two through his own experiences, where right before he would have an extraterrestrial encounter or an alien encounter, he would see deceased loved ones. There would be paranormal activity happening in his home. And you're like, what? What's going on here? And he had this idea that maybe these entities are using loved ones to have that medium to make it easier to connect, because it's so much easier to speak to someone that you know and that you love versus a stranger that you've never met before. You're not going to share your darkest secrets. You're not going to share your true thoughts with someone that you don't know compared to someone that you do. Also, with the Project Blue Book, J. Allen Hynek had similar revelations, to where there were a handful of UFO reports that he followed up on. He spoke to the witnesses, and they were having paranormal activity happening in their home. Objects were moving, lights were flickering, apparitions were being seen, and then they would have a UFO sighting or vice versa. And it's really odd to see that certain people are mentioning this to the public, that they are could be interconnected, or are we just mislabeling things and they're all in the exact same category?
That's a wonderful theory about it. Like I said, when you look at it on those things, because that's the other side, because I knew we'd go down to UFOs, but you do a lot of paranormal stuff too. And I find it fascinating. I mean, I do not believe this is all there is. I just don't. I think life is too complex. I think there's so much for us to learn that we can't pack it into, on average, 70 years. Like for a universe of 26, 27, 28 billion years in length, I don't think there was anything meaningful in a span like that, right? And so it's an area to go into for growth and learning. When it comes to paranormal, what's some of your favorite stories? Because you've done plenty of them, right? And that's what I said. This is a chance if you can just sit back and have Christina at a coffee shop and go, all right, girl, tell me something's going to scare me. I mean, this is, I'm living all of your fans' dream.
Oh my
right
goodness.
Now,
okay.
You realize that? That's what I'm doing. I'm doing that.
I do have probably my favorite story and the scariest story I've ever heard. And it was actually relayed to me by Jim Harold, who owns like the paranormal podcast, a Jim Harold podcast. But what probably one of the scariest stories that he ever told me was, and let me preface this actually. Ouija boards. I don't like them. I'm not in the category of playing with those for my own reasons. And people are like, oh, it's a great communication device. And I'm just like, I'd rather not. Just between you and me, I'd rather not. So yeah, right. So
Yeah,
I was telling Jim this, and he says, I have a story for you. And I'm like, okay, let's hear it. So he had mentioned to me of someone that had called into his show to tell him a story of how these people were playing with the Ouija board. It's already a mistake. Like, it's already going to go down from there. And it does. Because after they're playing with this Ouija board, strange things happen. And they're like, I don't want to play with this anymore. So they set it on fire. Do you know what happens next, Gary? It doesn't. It doesn't burn. And the scariest part is it begins to move like an inchworm. Take it or leave it.
That's it.
Take it
I
or
don't
leave
know
it.
you people. I will never see eyes, but I'll never be in your presence again. I'm out of here. I am, you guys are on your way to hell. I'm going to In-N-Out Burger. Okay. I'm just saying that's where I'm going. So I don't know what you guys are doing.
Oh my gosh, how funny is.
Are you as fascinated with near-death experiences as I am?
Oh, I love them. They're amazing.
I actually have one. My mother was on a phone. I grew up in South Alabama, and my mother was on the phone during a thunderstorm, and lightning hit the house and the phone, and it came out and it hit her, and it knocked her about 10 feet under a table. And I remember this because she was out, she was gone. And then she came to a couple of minutes later, and she always related the story her entire life. She said she remembered being on the roof, looking down and seeing all of us, and told us where we were in the house and what happened and what we said. And then she goes, she wasn't sure who it was. She thought it could have been someone in her family, her mother, her father, who pushed her on the shoulder and said, it's not time. It's not time. Not now. And she went back into her body. And that is a story I heard from my own mother. Right. And I'll tell you another little spooky thing. My mother, she had gone to church with her husband, my stepfather. And the sermon was, are you ready? And she goes, you know what? If I were to die tomorrow, I think I'm ready. I know who my children are, and I've met my grandchildren, and it's been an amazing life. Well, the next day, she watching TV, and she goes, my back hurts. She goes, I'm going to go take a hot shower. She goes into the kitchen, and my sister-in-law's brother was there. He was an EMT. They heard her fall. They go in, she's gone. They do CPR. They bring her back. She looks around and she goes, y'all don't worry about me. I'm fine. And it's gone. Just like that. How about that?
And she didn't come back after that?
No, she passed. This is back in 1996. So that was her last words. Y'all don't worry about me. I'm fine.
That's reassuring.
Isn't it? Isn't it? And I could share with you another story if you want. My brother had a terminal illness, and this is after my mother had died. And I called him one day, not long before he passed, and I said, how you doing, babe? And he goes, I'm just sitting here. And I said, really? I said, who's there with you? And he goes, mom and dad. Now, both of them had passed. And my dad had passed estranged. And I said, really, where are they? And he goes, well, mom's on the bed with me and dad's sitting around across the room. And I'm like, well, doesn't that make sense? Because I don't think my father, he probably still feels guilt and doesn't feel like he has the right to be that close, but he wanted to be there. Right? And for my take, it was like, I can't tell you that you're not seeing this right now. And I said, well, tell them I said hi. And they said hi. And that was it. So isn't that crazy? So when you talk about the interdimensional, that's what it colors my experience, right? That they only appeared when they needed to appear. which is just touching, wonderful, weird, all at the same time.
I have no comment on that. I'm getting a little teary-eyed. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay. Like these stories are touching. But that's when you have stories like that, ones that are personal, ones that have touched your family or yourself, they hit different than anything you could ever read. And when you have your own experience, you don't need someone to validate it for you. You don't need another book, a documentary, or the government to say, yeah, it's true, because you live it. You live it on a daily basis. And that's when you look at this topic, you have those that have never had an experience and want that validation, and those that have had an experience and just say, I already know. I already know this. And with a story like that you've had family members go through, I don't think you need anything else. Do you?
Well, it's fun to share those stories because it's wonderful. That's why I'm so, I mean, I know you've gone on with these NDEs, like the doctor who died in a kayaking accident and was not breathing for almost an hour and came back and said, this is what I saw. This is amazing. It was amazing. And because that gives us all the reassurance, I think we all want to, to go, man, this can't be it. Right. Because as I've said, in a universe that's 28 billion years old, what's the worth of 70 years of being here? Right. There's got to be something more and something through that. And there's no wasted in nature. We find there's no waste. There's no wasted anything, that everything has a value and a purpose. So what is the purpose of having trillions of planets? What is the purpose of having so much space? I don't know. And I'm not about to give you an idea. I'm just going, that's my question. What is the purpose of all that? And I truly think at some point we find the answer, whether it's on this side of the dimension or the other side of the dimension.
It's something that the human mind just cannot comprehend, because we live in such a limited space here on Earth and in a very limited sized home, whatever size that might be, and so on and so forth. When we even look at storage data on our laptops or on our phones, it's the same deal. We only have a limited amount, and we can keep buying more. But to us, it has a purpose. But all of that empty space in space, you scratch your head and you say, why? Like, well, what's the purpose? And while we might not have an answer, maybe someone else does, maybe on this plane of existence or the next. But when we're looking at near-death experiences, yes, it is really reassuring. And it's consistent across religions. There are different ideas. You have Buddhism and Hinduism that believe in reincarnation. You have the Catholics and the Jews that believe that there is another existence, but it's referring more to heaven or hell, and that this life is it. This is your only chance. You better make it good, right? When we have these ideas, either way, there is something on the other side. There is something more than just this one. And for many people, not everyone, it's reassuring that when we die, that we're not fully gone. We didn't do all this hard work for nothing, because the work that we do, Gary, you and I, it's a lot of work. And just to leave the earth and say bye, and that's it.
Yeah. And there's just so much to learn. And you talked about the connection between humanity and technology, which leads me to the next thing. How about that Elon Musk and his chip in your brain?
Yeah, by Neuralink. Yes.
Is that something you would be willing to explore? Because I can say, not the first generation, if it came to the 10th and 12th generation, and you've shown me, but it's amazing to me that you saw how many people signed up to go to Mars for a one-way mission, right? No. And people, we signed it up going, yeah, stick that chip in right there. Maybe that's the next step of human. I don't even want to say it's human evolution, because that would be technology evolution. There's nothing human about sticking the thing in there. If we evolved a USB port up there, that's different, right? That's different. Now we can tell it's evolution, but to stick it in there. That's a technology evolution, if you would. But what's your take on it?
This is a really cool conversation, actually. To start off with, we're already integrated with technology. We have our phones in our pocket all the time. People are addicted to their cell phones. You look at it consistently throughout the day. It's not just once or twice. It's every few minutes. Same with our laptops. Same with just being in touch with the media. In the last few years, honestly, since 2020 onward, we have already become integrated with our technology, if we like it or not. No, it's not fully in our body unless you go to Whole Foods and they do like the scan your palm thing.
Did you see they're getting rid of that?
Oh, it's still there.
Did you see they're getting rid of that? The whole thing about walk in and shop and walk out. They just announced they're getting rid of it because A, the carts wouldn't work sometime, and B, people have figured out how to scan. Because it's what humans
That's
do.
just how it is. People
Right?
learn how to
And
scan.
whoever thought that was, I was going to say, whoever thought that was a bad idea. Let's just people walk in, just grab your groceries and walk out. I know you're all honest. So it's going to work out just great.
What to answer your question about the chip, I think, in my opinion, it is a part of human evolution, as we're already seeing it now. Evolution, it requires certain catalysts in order to it to evolve at a quicker pace. When we're looking at the Neuralink and putting a chip in, or we can even look at prosthetics as well and how they're connected to the brain in order to function properly. You have these cyborgs, but we're already integrating into technology. It will happen. People are slowly becoming more open to it. And it all started off with people that have paralysis, people that aren't able to use their bodies properly. So the Neuralink is having this positive mental effect on people of, okay, it's just for those that need it. But at some point in time, everyone will have it, because why do you want to keep flipping your phone back and forth to get notifications? You'll get all of it right there. It's the same thing with the VR goggles, right? Virtual reality goggles. At some point, we'll have contacts like that. We'll have glasses like that everyone will be wearing. Is that not pushing human evolution, in your opinion, Gary?
That's very good points. I mean, you make such great points. And that's why I said, never be afraid to say, have you thought about this? Because that's the stuff I love. I tell you what, I always tell everybody this. If I'm in a debate with you, here's the secret. I'm rooting for you. Because if you take my idea and say, no, that's wrong, then I've learned something. If I win, I've learned nothing. So I'm secretly rooting for anybody who has a different kind of opinion. I really am. I mean that. But I think that's such great points, because yes, you think about the stuff that we've been able to do with prosthetics, the ability to possibly reconnect spinal cords, right? And taking paraplegic out of the equation. The stuff that we're doing with stem cell and nanorobots, nanotechnology. They just announced, and we had that on the Science News this morning, about being able to take targeted medicine and stuff and take it onto a tumor. Not only that, you have a scratch in your computer or your phone screen. They can put this technology in there and use the polymers to completely fix it. So it's just gone. Right. And it's the same concept for both, for the technology repair and the tumor repair. And we are right there on the cusp. I think in your lifetime, certainly in my son's lifetime, I think we will have eradicated so many forms of cancer. I really do. And it will check. Will it all? No, because cancer continues to form. It's a buddy of mine. He's an oncologist, and he goes, the thing about cancer is it's your cancer, right? There's no one size fits all cancer. Your body has different makeup. Your body has different everything like that. And so it's always going to change a little bit. So we're always trying to find the magic bullet that'll work on yours. Won't work on anybody else's. So there'll always be a mutation. But I think it's going to be a much easier deal that when you may face a health crisis, they sit back and say, here, take this pill. It's got a little robot in it. It's going to fix that right up. It's going to be stunning. So, Cristina, plan accordingly. You could be around for 120 years. I mean, just plan accordingly because that's where it's all going. That's what everybody from, from the time of the Egyptians through now, we have been fighting for immortality. We have been searching for it. We have been clawing for it. And now we have enough technology that we don't build a pyramid. We're like, we can do this where we can trick your DNA into thinking it shouldn't age. Or if it does age, it should only age instead of every day, every year. Right? So all of a sudden, maybe you do live 160. And then when you add into the Neuralink, what if you can upload your consciousness? Is it really you? That's another debate. It's great. Have you ever read the book, We Are Legion, We Are Bob?
No, I never even heard of it.
It is an audiobook and you can get it on Amazon, but it's called We Are Legion, We Are Bob. And the great Ray Porter narrates it, and it's written by Dennis E. Taylor, and it's hilarious. With it, the premise is, and I'll give you a quick thing, is this Elon Musk type character goes to have his body frozen. So maybe later in the year, in technology, when it comes about, they can revive him. He walks out of the cryogenics lab and gets hit by a car. He wakes up 300 years later as a computer program. It's crazy. And it's so much fun. And then they send him out into space as a probe and he starts replicating himself. And what he finds is with each replication, he just thought he'd be replicating himself. Every time he replicates himself, it's a little different. It's a little different. It's a little different. And it's fantastic. It's fun. Because I know you have so much. So.
It's a funny joke, Gary.
Yeah. You got so much free time. Just throw that in there. But it takes that idea and runs with it in a creative and funny and touching way. It's there. So I look at your points and go, man, that is such great things. And we don't, my favorite saying, and everybody who knows me will tell you, my favorite saying is nothing ever turns out the way you think it will. Every drug we have pretty much started out with another purpose. Right? And then we found the side effects. Oh, people want that side effect, right? Right now, the current drug is Ozempic. People want the drug you can inject and lose weight. Well, it wasn't designed for that. Neither was Valium. Neither was, what's the thing? The sex drug. I'm blanking on it right now. The old men take the pill. There we go. Right? That wasn't designed for it. It was a side effect of something else. And they're like, oh, well, we can sell the side effect. Right? So it never turns out the way you think it will. The problem with immortality is, really? Will people stop having children? Because if you're going to be around forever and there's only so much resources, what do we do? What do we do? Weird to think about, isn't it? Changes the game.
It does.
My dear, I know you have a show to do, so I know you have to get going. But I would love to do this again because as you can tell, I could sit and talk to you probably all day. And you would just be like, I never want to hear another human voice again because I'm done hearing people talk. But I am so excited about what you're doing and watching this grow exponentially. This is, and sooner or later, you're going to have to get rid of the other couple of jobs because this is going to be all you do. And it's going to be very worthwhile.
I hope so. This topic is so worth people's time. It's worth their curiosity. It's worth their imagination as well, more so than other things. Now that is based on opinion and bias as well. But in all seriousness, in all reality, looking at the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, space exploration, the paranormal, it opens up our eyes to the mere possibilities. And when we begin to ask bigger and better questions, it will help humanity evolve for the better. It's not just for entertainment. It's not just to waste time because you have it. It's to allow the brain to thrive. And I love that.
You are on such a fun path. Like I said, I'm just so excited to watch you grow. I really am. I mean, it's going to be, gee whiz. People are going to go, wait, you had her on your show? That's the kind of reaction I'm expecting, right? As you continue to just get more and more out there. Find her on YouTube, Cristina Gomez, The Strange Paradigm, just everything. 3 shows. Tuesdays, it's Tales of the Strange. Wednesdays, it's Mysteries with Histories, and that's with Jimmy Church. And then today, you've got the Weekly Strange News. On Fridays, it's Weekly Strange News.
You got this down.
Just thrilled. As I said, I have spent way too much time in rabbit holes with you, young lady. And you need to stop being so damn interesting so I can get a little more work done.
I can't promise you that one, Gary. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun.